Welcome to Staveley and welcome to Staveley Mill Yard. I'm David Brockbank. We're responsible, my family's been responsible for this site for probably well over 100 years now. I'm not quite sure when my grandfather got involved with it. But I'm standing here on the banks of the River Kent. The River Kent is really important for us, and the river's really important for us because it used to power the wood turning industry that we had here, and it still powers the water turbines now which produce electricity. The mill yard site is a 4-acre site in the middle of the village, so we're ideally placed right within the community, and Staveley is about 3 miles into the Lake District National Park. As you come here, you'll find that it's very accessible from the south and very accessible into the Central Lakes, being on the main road. As I said, the site's about a 4-acre site, and we now have a whole diverse range of business and industry here, full of different people, from bakers and a big cycle shop which supplies all the mountain bikers to the local area, to quite heavy industry of engineers and motor engineers and joiners who need a place to work in the Lake District like they need a place to work anywhere else in the world. So I think one thing we all share is a real understanding and a real responsibility for the environment that we're actually operating in. When the mill was in its heyday of wood turning, we used to use the indigenous timber. We still use the water power here. And I think every business is here because we do love the area, we have a great passion for the area, and we do understand the very, very special qualities. But we also understand that we need to move forward, we need modern industry here, we need to pay better wages, and we need better wages so people can afford the housing, and we have really successful, profitable businesses in just one of the most beautiful parts of the world. There's been a mill here since about 1600, when it was a woolen fulling mill, where they used to wash the wool from the sheep that was the main production in the area. And then in about 1830 we changed into making cotton reels for the Lancashire cotton trade. But the main reason there was industry here is because of the river. The River Kent apparently is the most powerful river in England. It falls the greatest height in the shortest distance. And there used to be 30 mills all the way down the Kent that used the water power, and we, fortunately or unfortunately, whichever way you look at it, we're the last one left that actually has the capability of using the water power. And with water turbines it now provides about 10 to 15% of our electricity requirements. In about 1900 the cotton reel industry was sort of diminishing a bit, so we diversified into making wooden tool handles, and we used indigenous timbers, and we still were using the water power, which was directly driven from a big water wheel that was in the mill to drive the wood turning lathes. We made a huge amount of pick handles and shovel handles during the wars. We supplied shunting poles to British Rail, and we supplied the mines with all their pick handles and all the rest of it. We then started importing timber because there wasn't the sort of quantities that we required here in the UK. And by about the 1980s, 1990s, we were actually the largest wooden tool handle producer in Europe. We had automatic computer-controlled lathes that could produce a hammer handle in under 10 seconds. And we were employing about 50, 60 people up till about the 1990s. But unfortunately, as JCB invented diggers, and well, there weren't gangs of navvies digging Manchester ship canals and things, I reckon that every JCB that rolled off the production line was 30,000 less picks and shovels. And today it seems that nobody uses a pick and a shovel to dig a trench now. We all have to hire mini diggers and all the rest of it. So as our market was reducing, the product was getting more competitive, and imports were coming into the country. So really then that was probably the demise of our manufacturing here. Unfortunately, we found out that we could actually buy the finished product in from the Far East and from Brazil cheaper than we could buy the wood and then we'd have to try and manufacture the finished product here. So the writing was on the wall really that we should be moving the manufacturing out to the Far East and to South America, and that left us with a large site here in the Lake District, 4 acres in the middle of a village. And I thought, well, do I get planning permission to turn it into houses, in which case I wouldn't be here in front of the camera. I would be in the Caribbean somewhere sunning myself on the profit made from that. Or do we try and replace the jobs that were lost in manufacturing here in a small village with other jobs? So we produced a master plan. The master plan was a combined scheme of retail, of industrial, but mainly industrial sort of non-tourist related jobs, and a little bit of housing for locals that were struggling to actually find housing in the village. So we came forward with a scheme. We're nearly finished now, which is fantastic. When we were doing the wood turning, there were 100 people working here in 1890. I have a picture of them all. And now, when we've just finished this next phase, we'll have over 400 people working here. So we're busier now than we ever have been at the height of the Industrial Revolution. 20 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to hear yourself speak in here because it used to be full of wood turning lathes. I learnt to set and operate a lathe, and Robin here also worked a lathe. And now we're doing something much more pleasant of pulling and drinking beer, which you know, is a good change to have. But Alex, the owner of the brewery here, has a beer hall where you can taste the beer. Apparently beer is much better when it doesn't travel. So where better to come than actually to the beer hall and sample the beer that he then sells all over the Lake District and even further afield. But it's just great that that this use is taking place in somewhere that used to be really hard work, didn't it, Robin?
It did.
It did. We're very, very lucky with the tenants and the businesses that we have here on site. Behind me is Monk's Bakery. Aidan set up in a very small little unit and now has expanded to employing now 30 people. And Organico, for example, they're very, very passionate about wine, and they use their premises here as a bit of retail, but also as their wholesale and distribution warehouse where they're supplying all the pubs and restaurants in the area. We're very lucky because of where we are that we can actually do a little bit of retail. So Monk's Bakery can sell sufficient bread out of his window and out of his little shop to actually pay an awful lot towards the rent to the landlord, which is really important, but more importantly is his overhead and infrastructure costs of actually being here. So the tourist is compensating and in a way sort of assisting businesses, all year round businesses being here by just being able to sell a little bit of retail to them. Behind me here is our latest development. It's a 20,000 square foot building, which is predominantly office, but also has got some B1, B2 use of industrial use. And I'm very lucky, or I think my rents must be too cheap, that it's all pre-let. We've got a huge number of people that actually do want to come and move into the Lake District and into the village. They're passionate people, they love the area, they appreciate the area, and they want to come and work here and live here and bring up their families. And we've just been very fortunate with the whole range of tenants that we have here, and that creates 400 jobs on the development here, and that helps the whole village. So our school's full. We've got all the infrastructure that we need in a village. We've got the part-time fire brigade, which is justified, newsagents, chemist shop, hairdressers, all the infrastructure that you actually need to make a vibrant working community. And that really helps, I think, the Lake District. If you sort of have people that want to move here, Indigenous people that want to better themselves, and I compare it to when we had the wood turning business, where it was a pretty low paid industry, very competitive industry, and then the workers couldn't actually afford the houses, to pay for the houses in the village. Now we've got better paid jobs, and my big ambition is to have really well paid jobs so that the people that work in them are better paid and can compete with anybody in the country to buy a house or to rent a house here in the village. And that makes us a far more sustainable, far more vibrant, it's just much better fun as a place to be and a place to live and work.